Okay, good.
So I want to welcome everyone. I'm Nancy Russo of Creatives Roundtable. I'm happy to welcome Ilise Benun back for the 5th time to present to the Creatives Roundtable and to present the mini content marketing intensive. I also want to welcome you all for taking the time out from your day to attend, or as Ilise would say, y'all.
Yeah.
The Creatives Roundtable is a small group coaching and Slack community. We meet once a month on Zoom for accountability, support, and to learn from one another to help level up our careers as creatives. Group members get free perks such as these events. Our Slack only members get these events for 50%. They can all participate in our co-working sessions, which are called focus sessions, which are weekly. We have very active conversation channels, and we have a monthly happy hour. I have no idea if anyone drinks during that. Everyone who is registered will be added to our email list, so you'll hear from us about our other events like this and more. You can unsubscribe if you don't want to continue to hear from us. Thanks for the opportunity to be in touch with you. We will be sharing Ilise's slides and the recording to everyone afterwards. When you land on Ilise's website, marketing-mentor.com, the words that greet you are build the business of your dreams without the marketing nightmares. To me, that's what Ilise's business model is about. She helps creative professionals win better clients and bigger projects with the resources that actually improve your marketing. Through her mentorship programs, her podcast, which is a must listen, courses, and materials, she helps you build the creative business that provides the life and freedom you want. Take it away, Ilise.
Ooh, thank you. I may have to borrow that intro, Nancy. You just never know. I love constantly updating everything, including this presentation. So thank you so much for the invitation and welcome, y'all. Thanks for showing up. And I'm glad you showed up because we're going to do a little work together as part of this. And if you're watching the replay, I hope you will also take the time to do the work, not just fast forward through it. So let me share my screen and get started here. So Nancy, tell me, do you see the right thing?
I do.
All right, excellent. So this is a mini, in parentheses, content marketing intensive. And I don't need to go into details anymore, but I guess the one thing that maybe you didn't mention is the Simplest Marketing Plan, which is kind of the flagship product and program that I've been really focusing on in the last couple of years. So that is part of what I do. So I just wanted to share a little agenda first. You may wonder what it means that we're calling this a mini content marketing intensive. And really, to me, intensive means focus. And it also usually means we're going to do some work. So we're going to talk about content marketing, and I hope it'll be as interactive as possible. And we can ask questions and we can comment, and some of it can be in the chat and some of it can even be live, unless it gets out of hand, of course. But we'll talk a little bit about content marketing, and then I like to always share some excellent examples, and then you will create a bit of content during our solo work session. So be sure to stay for that. And then we'll come back and I'll share some final thoughts and we'll wrap up with a Q&A. That's my plan. So the big idea, just for those of you who have either never heard me speak on this before, but maybe also it's easy to forget what the big idea is. The big idea is that marketing works when you know exactly who you're looking for. And I like to think of those people as your people. Some people say your target market, your niche, your industry, whoever they are. I like to think of them as your people. These are the people you want to help, and you need to know who they are. And if you don't know who they are, it can be tricky to do the marketing and to create content for them also. So you need to know who they are. You need to know where to find them. And more these days, I really think you can find them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a lot of people, and you probably don't need all that many people. And there are other places, obviously. And when you're doing strategic networking, which is another element of the Simplest Marketing Plan, then you're going to find your people in real time as well, in person. But for our content marketing purposes, we're going to focus a little bit on LinkedIn. Marketing works when you know what they need to hear in order to trust you. And essentially, that means that you get them. You need to let them know that you get whatever they need, are struggling with, are aspiring to. And then you make that the core message of your content marketing and your marketing content, which is a whole other presentation. But just know that your content marketing and your marketing content work hand in hand to speak to and attract your people, your ideal clients. So another way of saying this is that your marketing is actually not about you. Not even your homepage is about you. And thank you, Nancy, for reading the headline from my homepage. Here it is, because I like to use myself as an example because I try to practice what I preach. And this is my homepage, which is not about me. It's about you and what you're struggling with and what you're aspiring to, both in the same sentence. Actually, I can't take credit for writing that. Someone who knows me really well and knows my work wrote that: build the business of your dreams without the marketing nightmares. And then the subtitle there: helping creative professionals win better clients and bigger projects with the simplest plans, guides, and resources that actually improve your marketing. So my marketing message is about you, not me. That's really one of the core ideas about content marketing. And I think that's good because people tell me it's hard to talk about yourself, but it's bad because it means that you really must understand your market really well, their problems, their pain points, their goals, their aspirations, and the language that they use. You actually have to translate your language into their language to speak to them in order for them to understand you. And this is a mindset, and it's really unnatural for a lot of people, and it takes years and years of practice. So I don't expect ever anyone to be able to do this right off the bat. But when you do that in your marketing, your content marketing and your marketing content, they basically land on your website and say, oh my God, this is exactly who we need. And that's the ideal thing that you want to have happen. That's your goal. And the flip side of that goal actually is that you want the people who aren't going to say, this is who I need, to be repelled so they don't bother you, so they don't waste your time or theirs. Right? So that's why we're going to focus. So let's have a little interaction in the chat. I would love to know who is already doing content marketing and what are you doing? So let's take a moment to put that in there. Just briefly, I send a monthly newsletter. I should be sending a newsletter. I can't really get to it every month. I would love to know what people are already doing. I'm going to drink a sip of water while you do that.
Laura says a monthly newsletter, blog, posting on LinkedIn. Libby says posting on LinkedIn weekly, newsletter every month or two. Cynthia, I draft and post articles on LinkedIn. Stephanie, monthly newsletter, regular social media posts on LinkedIn and a blog. Ruth says I co-host a monthly podcast and write for MarTech, an article every other month. Jane,
Awesome.
monthly newsletter, posting on LinkedIn 3 times a week. Linda, I post on LinkedIn 1 time a week. However, I prefer direct contact and outreach, including cold calls. Hector, posts social media, primarily on LinkedIn. Charles, I do a thing or two every day on Twitter. Carla, newsletter, blog posts, Instagram posts, reels and stories, LinkedIn posts. Lydia, email marketing, blog, and social media. I mainly focus on engagement on LinkedIn, but I'm on all channels. Helen, social media calendars, scheduling curated posts. Ruth, I have a helper who posts 5 times a week for me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Interesting. Yeah. Because we all need help when we're going to do a lot of this. Definitely. I have a lot of good help too. All right. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for reading it all out. That's really helpful. You know, I want to ask, like, well, what is content marketing anyway? How would you define content marketing? Because I think there's a lot of confusion about it. And often people think it's one thing or think it's another thing. So we don't need to read all of these out, but I would love to see a definition or two in the, and then I will, of course, give you my definition. What exactly is content marketing? Fanny thinks she knows what it is. I can hear y'all thinking. Actually, Nancy, let me put you on the spot. What would you say content marketing is?
Okay. Oh, we're getting some in here.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Why don't we go to that?
All right.
So you want me to read some of them, or
I will. Efforts to reach your target audience to solve their problem. Yes, content marketing is geared towards your client base and them only. You talk about pain points and give suggestions as to how you and your business can solve them. Yes. All right. So maybe I don't need to give this presentation. Creating informative educational material that solves target market's problems and makes them think you are expert and trustworthy. Yes. Expressing your expertise via images, videos, and written word on social channels. And I think the point there is really important too, that there's so many different media and formats for content marketing. That's part of the problem. And one way it gets overwhelming. Charles says this is basically trying to sell yourself, your products, and your services and ideas through content. Yeah, kind of. Sharing expertise and problem solving. Awesome. All right, good. Well, those are all right, definitely. And lately I've been wondering, like, why is most content marketing so bad though? Have you noticed that a lot of it out there is just really bad? And if you have a thought about that, do put it in the chat. But I'm just going to share one example anonymously of what I consider to be bad content marketing. And so here you can see that, here, let's move this so I can see it. Hold on. So this is an email newsletter I got yesterday. As the seasons shift, the focus on community support and business development is more important than ever. This is from a web design company. We're delighted to share we've been helping local companies and organizations create websites that help them connect with people online meaningfully. First, we're delighted to have helped this organization launch its new digital platform with a focus on helping people. Visitors will find local resources ranging from blah, 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 blah. It serves as a valuable resource, blah, blah, blah. See, to me, it's very blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, though, that even though I call this standard content, basically, I shouldn't call it bad. It's standard content marketing that's out there. And the thing is that it can work if the timing is right, because that's the thing about content marketing and all marketing, truthfully, is that if the timing is right and they're in or near their moment of need, whoever you're in front of, then this will work. So it's fine, but I think it could be much, much better. So standard content, just to put it in simple terms, is here's what I or we know all about, or here's what we just did, which is an example I showed you. Excuse me. High quality content, and that's what I want to focus on here, is here's what I or we know you are struggling with or are trying to accomplish. So the focus, as I've said, and as so many of you have said as well, is on them, and it's not about you. And here are just a couple examples from my blog, because again, I try to practice what I preach. And so this is how to connect with better conversations, because I hear from the market that having conversations is a very challenging thing. So I create content about, among other things, how to connect with better conversations. That's a pain point. Or this is from my podcast, Removing Obstacles to Growth. I interviewed Sarah Durham about her experience running Big Duck, which still is actually a big firm in New York, and how she helped to grow the firm. So that's an aspiration of the people that I work with. I want to say that high quality content does not have to be earth shattering. A lot of people think, oh no, but this thing I wrote is not earth shattering. I really think common sense is best. It doesn't have to be profound. I think clarity is better. And it doesn't even have to be original, because you can, in your content, oh, other people have said this already. What am I going to come up with that's original? No, reinforce what they already know, and at the same time, show that you know it too. That is very strong and what I consider to be high quality content. So let's just take all those things out of our head if we've got them in there. Because ultimately, your high quality content shows that you get your ideal clients, your people, as I said before, and it positions you as the best option for them. And sometimes when I talk about pain points, people say, should I be writing about my pain points or their pain points? No, it's their pain points. But I know that one of your pain points is that you rack your brain to come up with content. So I want to say, stop racking your brain. And then that begs the question, where then does this high quality content come from? And it is kind of a trick question. It does not come from your brain, although sometimes it can. But if you're racking your brain and not coming up with anything and getting discouraged, then I urge you to look elsewhere. And where I suggest you look are, and these are just because I like the numbers 3, I come up with 3 of everything. So high quality content comes from the market. So we want to listen to it. And those are your people, right? What are they telling you? What are they asking you? What are they ranting about? What are they venting about? What are they complaining about? What are they wondering about? As long as you're listening to the market, you'll have plenty of content for days, for months, for years. All you have to do is listen. You can also listen to the world, right? Keep an eye on trends. And AI is obviously a big trend at the moment. It's probably going to become more than just a trend. But I saw on LinkedIn this morning someone writing about the burnout of AI as the content focus lately, which I thought was really interesting. Some people are already burned out on AI content. I think there's plenty of opportunity there if you want to focus on that trend, but you can follow other trends, the trends in not just your industry, because that's the most obvious to you, but perhaps of less interest to your market. What are the trends in your market, right? Of your people? What are the trends they're following? And how does it relate to what you do for them? And then high quality content, I really think can come from other people. As I said, I don't think you have to create your own original content. I saw in the chat some people talking about creating curated content, sharing other people's content. That is one of the easiest things to do. And it also generates goodwill with those other people. But you can even just put your spin. We want it to be not just you sharing, but you adding yourself, a layer of yourself. So I'm suggesting that when you use other people's content for ideas or even sharing it, that you put your own spin on it as you pass it along. And I do have some examples. In fact, I think what's next is an example of someone putting their spin on a podcast that I was a guest on. So I'll just read a little bit of this. This is Carrie. She said, I love this recent post and podcast from Ilise Benun, and I'm also a new fan of Jenny Blake. So many gold nuggets in the 2 conversations between these 2 powerhouse women. So the flattery doesn't hurt. Also, everybody loves flattery. I'm already subscribed to Elise's Marketing Mentor podcast. I'll be subscribing to Jenny's Free Time podcast. So she's sharing our content as well. We love that. And then she says, I really resonate with Jenny's language, joy, abundance, love. While I'm currently a solopreneur, my goal is to not stay that way. So when she talked about how she'll partner with other agencies for the big projects like the launch of her new book or podcast, she goes back to a small group. It addresses the situation of her being a bottleneck as a solo, but not have to manage many people. Brilliant, right? So this is Carrie just adding her own thoughts, emphasizing, sharing, commenting, putting her spin on it. I love that idea. All right, this is my new formula that I came up with on my walk this morning. High quality content marketing formula. And I guess what I want to say is that you could do one of these things, but the best content is all of them together. All right. So you want to emphasize pain points and show that you understand what they're struggling with. You want to integrate your personality into it so that your who you are comes through. And you want to focus it on what you think of as your sweet spot, which is what you do best. To me, this is the ideal piece of content. And so when we write a little content or create a piece of content during the solo work session, hopefully you can attempt to bring all these things together. We'll see. All right. So I'll just give you a little bit about each of them. So the first one, it speaks to their pain points. And often people say, oh, but I don't know their pain points. How do I know what their pain points are? Okay, stop whining. There are lots of different pain points. There could be pain points about the deliverables, right? Often what they got from someone they worked with who is just like you, but maybe not as good, was not what they expected. That could be a pain point. There are many related to the deliverables. They could be about process, right? Like maybe the person that they worked with before was totally disorganized, or maybe they're disorganized and they need someone to help them be more organized. A lot of the times, maybe because of my dog Fanny, she's a border collie, I like to use the metaphor of a shepherd. What you bring to whoever you're doing something for, no matter what service you're offering, probably needs to include being a shepherd, because people are working in chaotic situations where the expectations are really high and sometimes impossible. And so how can you be more organized and just help them, as one of my clients like to say, breathe easier, right? Your content could all be all about them breathing easier. Jen Leonardson likes to say that. Or there are always pain points related to money or time, because you all know how hard it is to come in on budget and to come in on deadline. And so if your content can be about coming in on budget, coming in on deadline, how to tell if someone is going to be able to do that, right? That is of interest to your market. That is about them and not about you. And I guess I want to say it's only about you in the context of it being about them, right? It's not a black and white thing. Here is an example of Gigi Rosenberg's podcast, which is pain point oriented. This is one, she's a public speaking coach, and this is one episode that's all about, among other things, how to chit chat like a superstar, because a lot of her clients struggle with this idea of chit chat. So do mine, by the way. So that could be a piece of content for me as well, perhaps for you. A lot of people struggle with this. All right, so that's just an example of a podcast that speaks to a pain point. But if for some reason you just can't think of any pain points, or you're not sure, you don't feel comfortable talking about pain points, there's a universal pain point I think everybody's working with struggles with, which is too much to do and not enough time. So you could just speak to that pain point in your own content. All right, number 2, right? Personality, high quality content. The magic formula is infused by your personality. And what that means is you, because you are who you are, have a unique perspective. You may not know that. You may not even know what it is, but I guarantee you have it. So include it in your content. And sometimes it's related to your sense of humor. And you may not feel like a funny person, but maybe people say to you, hey, you're really funny. So include your sense of humor into your content. People love, and I think often need, humor in their day. And your life, right? And I loved the way you did this, Nancy. I commented on one of your recent newsletters where you basically talked about your summer and the things that happened during your summer. And that helped people on your list and your clients and your prospects get to know you a little bit better. And I think that is really good. There's a line to draw. Some people feel more or less comfortable with how much of their life they bring into their content. But I think we can walk that line and do well with our content marketing.
Yeah.
And then, here's an example from Amy Weir of Weir Creative. And this is from her blog. And she's got all sorts of excellent, amazing content actually on her blog, which she also sends out as a newsletter and then just posts to her blog. And this is called 9-Year-Old Wisdom. And it's about something that her 9-year-old son said to her about marketing. And so she just connected it to her business and posted it. And so we learn a little bit about her life, a little bit about her son, a little bit about her way of writing, her point of view, her sense of humor. All of that is included in this one example. I will be sharing some of these links later. And number 3 of the magic formula is that high quality content emphasizes your sweet spot. And this is important because if you're putting good content out there, but people are responding with the kinds of projects that aren't really lucrative or satisfying to you, then it's not working well. You need to basically attract the kind of work you want people to bring you, and you can do that through your content. And so you want to emphasize your most lucrative projects, ideally, right? The ones that bring you the most money, if that's one of the things that's important to you, or if that's not, or satisfying, right? What do you love doing the best? What are your favorite types of clients, whether it's a particular industry or a particular type of person? But make sure that you are creating content that includes the things that you want people to bring you. And the example I have for you is from Conrad Winter, who is a content and web copywriter for the transportation and logistics industry. And this is his LinkedIn newsletter, which I will show also the whole thing and one actual issue shortly. But he really speaks to, in his LinkedIn newsletter, the different types of projects that he wants most. And he doesn't write about the things, the pain points that aren't related to projects he wants people to bring him. Actually, let me share my screen now. I think that will make sense to show some of these examples. All right. So this, you can share that link also, Nancy, if you haven't already. Okay. This is a little Google Doc that I created for this session where I'm sharing the examples, the links to some of the examples that I'm showing, and also the links for the assignment that we're going to do together, because they'll be based on models and mimicking the masters. So the first one I want to show you, this is Wendy Jacobson of incrediblecontent.net. Actually, let's go to her homepage so you can see her homepage message. I write content that helps your business grow. So similarly, speaking to the goals and the aspirations of her target market. And I'm over here on her newsletters section where you can see her newsletter archive. And I just thought it would be interesting to look at all the titles of her newsletter. She does a weekly newsletter with 3 things. She calls it the 3. And she's just got 3 really simple tips in each of them. But you can see a lot of these are pain point oriented or goal oriented, but they're all about what people really struggle with. So the 3 challenges of content creation, 3 reasons to keep going, speaks to what some of you have said in the chat, right? About how hard it is to be consistent and to keep going. Confessions of a content creator. That's her bringing herself into her own content. She confesses about how much trouble she has creating her own content, which I find really endearing, actually. 3 misconceptions of content. There's just so much here, so many good examples. So you can look more at that, maybe even use some of hers as the model to mimic. All right, then we've got Clémence. Now, Clémence is, as you can see, so this is a LinkedIn post. She's a memoir writer, and she does family history. And I love the way because the thing about pain points is that you don't want to be too negative, and you don't want to, kind of put it in their face, rub their face in the negativity. And so you have to be kind of subtle about the pain point sometimes. And I liked the way she did this. So I'll just read the first couple paragraphs. So she said, first cousins who marry, check. Family members who aren't on the official tree, check. Ancestors who liked to gamble a bit too much, check. I had been hearing about shameful family secrets long before I started my business, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. The real issue is what to do about the secrets. Untangling that decision is one of the roadblocks, right? That's a euphemism for pain point, roadblock, obstacle, things that get in the way of family history projects, which is the kind of project she works on. Do you divulge the information to the rest of the family? If yes, how? If not, does that matter? Right? So this is not about her. This is about the things that people are thinking of doing a family history might be struggling with and using as a roadblock to hire her or someone like her. So I just really love that approach to content marketing, where then she goes into, this is what my feeling is. Here's how we handle that. And of course, someone would read this and say, maybe this is exactly who we need because we've got a lot of skeletons in our closet. All right. And then here, as I promised, is We're Creative's blog. And she's doing several different things on the blog. I showed you one example earlier. This most recent one is about the hunt for inclusive stock imagery and great sites. So it's a resource, right? It's full of links and suggestions. And so sharing resources as your content, because that's what your market needs, is also very effective. All right, let's see what else I have here. Oh yeah, here's the one I promised from Conrad, right? So he's a writer and he focuses on transportation and logistics leaders who want to build better content chains. So there's a lot of wordplay there, including in the title of his LinkedIn newsletter. And this is his first issue. So if you haven't done an issue of a newsletter or a LinkedIn newsletter, I really like this humorous approach. This is him bringing his humor into it also. Hey there, this is my inaugural LinkedIn newsletter. The tutorial told me to make it a good one if I hope to get any subscribers. So here goes. Full disclosure, this new LinkedIn newsletter is kludgy, and this may appear as a plain old LinkedIn post. If so, I'll try again next month. Please subscribe when you get a chance. And then, and this is related to the first piece of the assignment that we're going to do for this first newsletter, I'm going to lead with a recent question from a colleague regarding case studies, one of my favorite types of content to write and one of the most impactful content assets for companies, especially in transportation and logistics. And then he gives verbatim the question that someone asked him. So he's doing a couple different things here. He's answering a question, right? And as I said, if you listen to the market and the questions that they're asking you, you can have years worth of content. But he's also using number 3 of my magic formula, which is case studies, one of my favorite types of content to write, also the most lucrative. He doesn't have to say that, right? So he's doing several different things here that are excellent examples. All right, I think the rest, let's see which one this is. Yeah, I have one from Libby, but I'm going to come back to that. All right, so I'm going to come back to my presentation. I'm going to pause, actually. Nancy, tell me if there's anything happening in the chat or.
We have one question from Lydia, who said, would love to hear your opinions on a LinkedIn newsletter versus an email newsletter. Is it worth to have both?
Okay. Remind me when we get to formats, because I have a slide about formats. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So just staying with this idea of where does content come from? So I like the idea of generosity as a marketing tool. I've talked about that a lot over the years. And so I think the idea of sharing is important when it comes to high quality content as well. And one of the things lately that I've been finding for myself and for my clients is that instead of sharing what you know, share what you're learning. It's more present, it's more timely, It's part of your learning process to be able to regurgitate it basically and pass it along and translate it for the people in your world, in your market who need to understand it. And I'll share an example of all of these because that's what's going to make up the assignment. But just think about, what are you learning right now? Like, I'm reading this book, Nudge. Has anyone read Nudge? Not Nudge, Nudge. It's by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein. And it's actually, this is an updated version of it. They call it the final edition, but it's really interesting about, behavioral economics, basically. They're two economists. So my content right now is going to be about passing along these things that I'm learning that I'm still kind of trying to figure out, which means that you have to not be worried about perfectionism. Oh, I didn't get that right. Oh, I don't really understand it yet. No, just say, here's an idea that I just found in this book. What do you think of it? That's a very valid post to put out there on LinkedIn, right? To get people engaged. So what you're learning now, instead of what you know, of course you can share what you know, but as I said before, high quality content is more what you know about what they're struggling with. But what you're learning, how does that relate to what you may be able to do to help them? Tips and tricks you've learned over the years. People just love tips and tricks, hacks, lessons learned. All of these things are perfect how-to for your content. And the thing I would say about this is that often you don't know what you know. The things that come naturally to you, you may think, oh, everybody knows that. But if you're getting questions and you see that people are confused, then they may not know it. So use what you know and pass it along. What you're reading, watching, listening to, whether it's a book, music, it can be business related. It doesn't have to be business related. I have several clients who are always putting in their newsletter, here's what I'm reading these days. It's just nice because people are always looking for new resources, new things to read, new things to watch, new things to binge watch, apparently, right? And then put your spin on it. Why might they like it? Why would the people on your list, in your network, care about this thing? Make that connection for them, connect the dots there. Now, stories are really excellent fodder for content marketing. Not everybody is an excellent storyteller. I think we can all learn to be better storytellers, but you don't have to be a perfect storyteller to use stories in your marketing and in your content marketing. And the best kind are case studies, right? Those are stories about how you helped a client. And especially if you use the magic formula of the kinds of projects you want. So you would feature a client that represents a kind of project you want more of, and that you got some good results from, and that you got along well with, and can tell that story in a compelling and or brief way, then that makes for excellent content. And it's better than the portfolio share, basically, right? Here's the work we just did. There's a time and a place for that, but I think people appreciate and can understand more when you give them some background and tell the story of the problem that this client was having and the challenge that they were facing and how you swooped in and basically saved the day with your work, right? You frame it in that way. Make it worth listening to or reading or watching. And then finally, and this is the hardest thing to do, but I've seen people getting really good at this lately, stories from your life that you can connect to your work. And I will share an example or two about that as well. All right. So I'm going to come back and share those examples before we do the assignment, which is going to happen soon. Let's see how we're doing time-wise. I think we're okay here.
Yep, we're halfway.
Okay, good. So what is your content made of? Is it original content? Is it curated content, right? You sharing other people's stuff? Is it a combination thereof? Or is it something else? That's something to think about. You can put in the chat what yours is made of if you like. But first, let's talk about formats for content marketing. So yeah, actually, see, I even have that one for Lydia there. So I really think, and these are in order of preference, a newsletter, if you do nothing else, do a newsletter. A newsletter because, and actually let's define newsletter, because a lot of times people have a definition in their own mind or an image in their mind of what a newsletter is that prevents them from doing it. In fact, a lot of the content I've written and created over the years is about how a newsletter is not what you think it is, basically, right? So most people think a newsletter, oh my God, that's got to be 12 to 16 pages and it's got to have multiple stories in it. And who has the time for that? And who has the time to write it? And who has the time to read it? No, a newsletter, in fact, Deidre Rienzo, who I'll show you an example from her, she calls hers the un-newsletter because it's really super short and super simple. And I think a newsletter can be super short and super simple. In fact, when people tell me they like my newsletter, which I call Quick Tips, I ask why, and they say, because it's short. It's gotten longer, actually, so I don't know if they're still saying that. But a newsletter is the most important piece of content marketing because you send it to the people that you want to work with. You basically choose who's going to get it, or you get people on your list, whether it's on LinkedIn or off, but you are going outbound, out into their inbox, essentially. Whereas a blog, nothing wrong with a blog, and everything you put in your newsletter could or should also be on your website as a blog, although it could also be articles that you post on your LinkedIn profile and then feature. But the difference is people have to find it, right? They have to be drawn to it. You have to drive the traffic to the blog. Whereas with the newsletter, you're sending it to them. So you are in more control. And that's really what you want with your marketing, is to be in as much control as you possibly can for who sees what. And this came up in a coaching group earlier today. We were talking actually about email productivity tools and how sometimes in the morning you just got to delete almost everything that isn't the things you have to focus on right now. And I said, but when your newsletter is one of those messages that gets deleted today or tomorrow, don't worry. Don't be discouraged by that. It's not a bad thing because you still got that little mental real estate, that little mental hit in their mind. And they know if you're consistent, it will come every month, every 2 months, every 2 weeks for mine, right? So they don't have to read any of them. They just need to know that you're going to be there when and if they're in their moment of need. So don't worry, right? I can hear, I'm kind of channeling, some people are saying, yeah, but what if they don't read it? Then what's the point of doing it? There is a point. It keeps you top of mind, essentially. So newsletter, LinkedIn or off LinkedIn. So let's see, what am I saying lately? I'm liking LinkedIn as a starter newsletter, number one, for people who don't have one yet, because it's really easy and you don't have to use special software. And best of all, the people are already on LinkedIn. And so the first one you send out, like that first one I showed from Conrad, that goes to everyone who is a connection of his, and they get it in their inbox, their email inbox for the most part. And they get to say, yes, I'll subscribe, or they don't subscribe. So you don't have to find the people. In fact, this person who was talking today about this was saying, when I sent out my first one, I had 200 people subscribe right away, and I only have 400 on my MailChimp. And then now, after 4 issues, he's got 600, and he still only has 400 people on his MailChimp. So I think the potential for the growth of your visibility to your network is greater on LinkedIn. The problem, obviously, with LinkedIn is that you don't own that list. Although I'm not concerned that LinkedIn is going anywhere and is going to disappear or do anything with your list. I'm really not concerned about that. So for the most part, I'm saying, I think almost everyone should have a LinkedIn newsletter. And then if you want to have a MailChimp newsletter or a ConvertKit newsletter or any one of those, yes, do that too. And sometimes the strategy is like the LinkedIn one can be a year behind. The content can be a year behind. You're recycling, repurposing your content from your original newsletter, if you already have one, to your new LinkedIn newsletter. That's one way to do it. Or what I'm doing actually is my quick tips newsletter is all about different marketing tips. My LinkedIn newsletter is called Quick LinkedIn Tips, is all about LinkedIn. So it's a subset. It's going a little bit deeper into something that I'm already sharing, but it's different from the one so that people would want to subscribe to both.
And
So,
Elise,
yeah,
can I say something?
go ahead.
I think I heard this on one of your podcasts where one of
Mm-hmm,
the people who was posting an older one said
mm-hmm,
at the bottom, if you want fresh content, subscribe here. And
that's
so
right.
you can bring them into that newsletter as well.
Exactly. That was Michael Katz. And he basically said, if you're liking this, then know that you're getting it late, basically. And if you want to get it when it comes out, then go over here and subscribe to the original one. So yes, thank you for adding that. All right. So formats, I mean, these are just 3 of the 100 possible formats. But a newsletter, I've extolled the virtues of a blog on your website, yes, and or articles on LinkedIn, just so that they're there for positioning more than anything. And posting on LinkedIn is almost as simple as it can get. It could be a simple question post, it could be a poll, it could be something that you get people to engage with and then turn into a bigger post for your blog and then share that on LinkedIn. It kind of they feed each other. All right. And when in doubt, and you just have no idea what to post, you've got no ideas, and you can always share today's holiday. I love this website, nationaltoday.com. Today happens to be, among other things, World Gratitude Day. So if, when we do this assignment shortly, you don't know what to write about or create content about, you can just go to nationaltoday.com and find a holiday. Find one of today's holidays and choose that. All right, let's see what else. Okay, so before I give the work assignment, I'm just going to show the other examples that represent these, and these are also on the Google Doc. All right, where did it go? Oh, I lost the page. Hold on. All right, let me try something else. All right, there we go. Oh, I know what happened. Okay. All right, so again, we're over here, right? These are linked here. All these things I'm about to show you and previously are all linked on this document, which Nancy has shared. And if she needs to share it again, she can.
Just did.
Thank you so much. All right. So I was looking at Libby, right? So Libby, also a member of the Creatives Roundtable. So this is about sharing what you're learning right now, what you're reading. She wrote this post. I recently read How to Change the Science of Getting from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be by Katie Milkman. And it immediately resonated with me, maybe because I'm already using one of her techniques, temptation bundling. There's one TV show that I'm only allowed to watch if I'm using the rowing machine. We don't need to get into which show it is, but let's just say it has to be very addictive. Here are my main takeaways from the book. And then she just gives her takeaways, right? Do that. That could be really easy. All right, there's another option from Casey. She focuses, as you can see, on the health, wellness, and sustainability markets. So she wrote an article and then posted it. So her article is called Eco-Friendly Water Bottles and Hydration Tips for Wellness. So it's on a topic that would be relevant to her market. And then she just wrote a little post about it. If you've ever wanted to make a massive positive impact on the environment by doing one thing, you're going to want to read this article. here's the main idea. So she basically gave us the main takeaway: cut single-use water bottles and opt for reusable ones. Plus, check out my recommended water bottle brands and the hydration tips to give you energy and stamina throughout the day. So again, sharing resources that people would find useful in your market. And then, as promised, here's Deidre from Connect with Copy. This is her blog. But again, she sends her newsletter, and then she posts it on the blog. And they're super short. I'm going to read this one. There, she wrote about dogs, so she had to show a picture of her with a dog. All right, super short and simple, right? This is a newsletter. Where am I? And wow, I went for a jog on my usual trail at the park, only this time I did it in reverse. My senses were heightened and every step felt unique and magical. Everything I saw was somewhat familiar, but also upliftingly new at the same time. The point, she always has a transition called the point. Gaining a new vantage point isn't just for jogs, it can be for businesses too. Let me give you a fresh perspective like I recently did for, and then she's linking to recent projects. Who knew backwards could be the way forward, right? So speaking to connecting something she did in her life to the work with her call to action. And here is today on nationaltoday.com. All right. I think that's enough. Let's go back to the assignment then. So this is kind of perfect timing. We're going to take 20 minutes. And I want you to create a piece of content. You could do anything you want, but if you need a prompt, here are 4 examples or assignments. And again, they're on the Google Doc as well with the links as the models. So answer one question you get most often from clients or prospects, or share 3 takeaways from your favorite book or whatever. Show 3 tips relevant to your people. I think that should say share. Or tell a story and connect it to your work.
And these are choices, not all of them.
Exactly. Although if you want to do all of them, you're welcome to. We're going to take 20 minutes. So it's going to be, let's say, till 2:15. How about that?
Perfect.
Eastern.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to leave this up in case people need to look at it, but you can also go to the Google Doc and see the examples. Any questions?
Doesn't seem to be.
Okay, good. Great. Good luck.
Okay. Elise, we have a question here from Hector. He said thinks he's got something. Should he paste it here? Or are we gonna ask a few people to share?
Uh, let's see. Why don't you paste it there, Hector? And then we'll decide what to do.
Cool.
Okay.
I am a bit of a compulsive writer. Sometimes get good ideas, sometimes they get all mixed up.
Well, I will read it, and then when we all come back together, we can talk about it. All right.
It. We've got 4 minutes left.
I did just give some feedback to Hector in the chat. So if other people have something they want feedback on, go ahead and put it there and I'll read it if you want my feedback.
It's time.
All right. So come on back, y'all. And I would love to see in the chat what you did. Not, I mean, you don't have to post the thing you did, but tell us what you spent the time on. And then I have a few more thoughts to share and we can answer some questions. Cynthia's working on her next LinkedIn article. That's good. What you loved from a book, Laura. Which book, Laura? Feel like an artist. Excellent. Nancy wrote on an experience teaching clients versus teaching your students. That sounds really interesting. Libby, I didn't know you were here. I shared your stuff. I guess you saw that. You compared your hobby of pottery to graphic design work. That sounds interesting. And Linda shared a personal story about where does inspiration reside. Nice. You're welcome, Libby. Helen got stuck, so I repurposed an old post, summarized 6 quick tips on choosing a font for your brand. That's smart, Helen. Excellent. Lydia wrote a post using a story from my life inspired by something my 12-year-old said and look forward to sharing it on LinkedIn. Awesome. All right. Well, I hope it was helpful. Oh, there's one more. End of summer decluttering tips. Yeah, we can always, like those kinds of things are evergreen, right? You can put them out there constantly. You're welcome. You're welcome. I tried answering Lydia's questions on which between LinkedIn and email was better for newsletters. Nice. Exactly. Right? Like questions here could prompt content for any of y'all. So, all right. Beautiful. Yes. And definitely tag her, Charles, when you share it as the inspiration. And Hector, I did give you feedback and I basically said, this is a great first draft. And I would post the essence of the question, which is, what did you love or hate about picture day in school, on LinkedIn, and gather other people's perspectives also. So make it a more collaborative piece of content. And then you can tag those people and they might share it as well, right? You can turn it into a blog post or an article or something. There's just so much. It's just a content rabbit hole.
You can even get people to post their really bad photos, which
Oh, I love that idea.
ask them for permission to share in your newsletter.
That is really good. Awesome. All right. Other questions before we wrap up?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, good. So let me just share a few more thoughts then. One of the things that people tell me a lot when they get in this content marketing mode is that it begets confidence, that somehow taking all this stuff out of your head or out of the world or bringing it all together, that process itself makes you feel more confident about your work and your content marketing. So if that is your experience, I would love to hear about that in the chat as well. But if it's not, know that that is possible. A lot of times people ask me, like, where does confidence come from? And I think it comes from creating content, actually. So just a few things that we haven't covered that people often ask, which is how often, right? How often should I be creating content? And when I asked at the beginning, who's doing what, there's really a range of frequency and timing and everything. I would say if you're doing a newsletter, monthly is ideal. Bi-monthly, every other month, is fine. Quarterly is the minimum. So that could be like a maintenance also, that when you're really busy, you just commit to yourself, I am at least going to send something out quarterly or even monthly, right? But figure out what is your minimum content marketing maintenance so that when you get really busy, it doesn't fall off of the to-do list. Now, there's also like, how often should you post on LinkedIn? I'm not the LinkedIn expert, but I listen to a lot of LinkedIn experts. And what I've heard is that you don't want to be posting every day like you might on other social media, that maybe once or twice a week is ideal on LinkedIn in terms of posting. I'm not talking about commenting. Commenting is totally something else, but putting your own posts out there because they tend to last longer, especially if people continue to comment on them. They keep coming up in the feed. And I've noticed that if I post something today, let's say, and then post something tomorrow, my tomorrow post cannibalizes and kind of makes obsolete the one from yesterday. So you really want to give each post the time it needs to gain an audience and to share a little bit, especially if it's your LinkedIn newsletter. So I would say for LinkedIn, you can relax a little bit. You don't have to be posting every day for sure. All right, those are kind of my wrap up thoughts. And again,
wait,
yep.
you mentioned something that I think you should touch on, which
Tell
is
me.
which is the commenting.
Okay.
So you might post only once or twice a week, but how important is commenting?
Yeah, no, commenting is really important. I think it's more important than posting, actually. I don't see commenting as content marketing, which is why I don't include it in this presentation. It's more networking and outreach, but you could put it under the category of content marketing as well. But it's engaging, right? It's the way that you get to know people and share who you are and how you think and just contribute to the conversation. So I would do that every day. In fact, I think, a 5 or 10 or 15-minute LinkedIn habit every morning, first thing, is one of the best things you can do for your business.
I agree.
All right. So that's where you can get the PowerPoint and the link to the Google Doc if you're interested in this. And you can either use the QR code or the link, and it will download.
You will also be getting it in an email with the recording and the transcript, etc., and
Awesome.
all of these links. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And again, just happy to hear any comments or questions or anything. Oh, actually, I have a question.
Yeah.
So those of you who know my content, did that feel new or same old, same old? And I won't be offended if you say same old, same old.
Do you want to stop sharing your screen and we'll get everybody on the screen?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I forgot. I sometimes forget when I'm sharing.
Yeah. I thought that it was a mixture.
Okay.
I thought that it definitely brought it a step further than in the past. So I thought it was great.
Good to know.
Cynthia said it felt familiar but fresh.
Mhm.
Laura said the formula is new and an easy 3.
Mhm.
Lydia, fantastic talk always. Thank you, Ilise.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, I was going to give an old presentation, and then yesterday I was like, no, I've got so many new ideas. I think I need something new. So
yeah. Does anyone have any? I am still recording.
okay.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions they want to ask about content?
Or about anything, really.
Or yeah. No, you're all experts now.
They're marinating.
Yes. So I will be sending you how to reach Ilise as well, of course, her website, and you can always find her simplest marketing plan there. I think it's fabulous. I think
Thank you.
Ilise is fabulous. So I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you.
There
Ilise.
are a couple more questions there I see, actually.
okay.
So let's answer them.
Okay. How to measure best your content marketing is working.
Yeah. So here's my thought about that. Oh, actually, I have a new idea that's related to that. Einstein had this thing he calls spooky action. Has anybody ever heard of spooky action?
No.
All right. I have to do a little bit more research, but if you Google it, you'll see it. But it's essentially this idea that I've kind of been saying a different way, but he put this awesome name to it. And of course, has a brain that goes along with that. But the idea is that there are certain things you can't measure, basically. And marketing, I think, is actually one of them. As much as metrics are out there for us, there are connections that we don't see. So if someone sees your content and remembers you and then forgets you and then remembers you again, you can't really draw a direct line to those things. So, and there is something I call newsletter magic, where if you stay in touch with people long enough, every time you send a newsletter, no matter what it's about, if the timing is right, they will respond and say, okay, I'm ready now. And that happens to me a couple times a month. I send my newsletter out. Someone says, okay, I need to talk about coaching, right? Something like that will happen. That's newsletter magic. That's where you know it's working. But that said, Helen, I wouldn't be too focused on whether or not it's working because content marketing is part of the Simplest Marketing Plan, which has other marketing tools in it. And if you're doing your marketing and putting yourself out there in this spooky action way that Einstein talks about, then I think it will work. And how you know it's working is, are you getting the clients and the projects that you want? And if you're not, then something's not working and you need to adjust. That's my answer.
And Ellie says, LinkedIn subscribers, can you not offer a call to action where you capture their email?
Well, the way that Nancy remembered Michael Katz was doing is the way to do it. Basically, you say, go over here and sign up for this thing over here. But otherwise, you can only see who's subscribed. And yes, you could go into each of their profiles and grab their email address, which, may be worth doing for outreach, but certainly not for your newsletter. But other than that, there isn't really a way. They don't make it easy because they don't want to take people off of the platform, obviously.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Quantum entanglement. I don't think that's it. There's spooky. It's got the word spooky in it, Hector. I'll find it. I'll find it and put it on the Google Doc.
So I just wanted to let you know that we have 2 Creatives Roundtable events coming up. One is next week. It's a happy hour. There is no charge for it. And it is focused on declutter. What do you keep and what do you archive? If you're as old as me, you have 5 million samples of every single project you have ever designed. And every once in a while, I say, oh, well, I only need 5 of them, or I only need 3 of them. And I'm down to 2 boxes. So anyway, I won't be there. Actually, I don't usually attend the happy hour, but that will be discussed on September 28th. And then on October 19th, we have Leah Neanderthal talking about the 3 levels of profitability that every consulting creative business needs and how to achieve them. And we have everything booked through April of next year. Not everything's on the website yet, but we have some really great events coming up. I hope you join us. Thank you again, Ilise.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks, y'all, for showing up. Good to see you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.